because if there's no one there to hear the sound, there's also no one there to see the tree falling. By the way, when I was in college, there was a black and white picture of a tree falling, and you could see the smear of the tree falling. Pretty good photography, right? And in the foreground of the picture in the woods was this big table, bigger than this table, with a big tape recorder, the big two-wheel tape recorders. And underneath it, it said, "What Sony hears is." So you get the idea. Sony is misunderstanding the nature of the question and delaying, who hears it, because theoretically you wouldn't hear the sound until you played the sound back so that you could hear it. But of course, if you're insisting that the tape recorder is hearing reality because it's such a good tape recorder. Imagine trying to walk around with one of those. You have to have it plugged in, of course. It needs electricity. So you wouldn't be able to carry that around with you. That could have been funny. I still remember that picture. I can see it, right? I do want to show you others saying Barkley instead of Berkeley. And this is a cute little video from Sophie's Welt. It's in German, but that's Sophie rowing her boat to this little island. And there she is.
Bin ich wirklich? Miss Amundsen,
Sophie Amundsen.
darf ich es dir erklären?
Shall I explain?
Hör mir mal zu, mein Kind. Ist der Tisch wirklich?
Ja, ist er.
Was wirst du fühlen,
Is
wenn du draufschlägst?
the table real?
Irgendwas Festes,
Strong,
Hartes.
hard.
Bist du wirklich
Are
Miss
you real?
Amundsen?
Are
Ich
you
denke
real?
schon. Aber
So?
wer sind Sie?
Who are you?
Mein Name ist Barclay. George Barclay.
So there you go.
Ich bin
George
Sophie.
Bush.
Das Einzige, was wirklich ist die Macht des Herrn.
The only thing that's real is the power of the Lord, of
Der
God.
Herr, Sophie. Gott.
Roberto,
Roberto is her tour guide.
Alles, was du fühlst, verdankst du nur der Macht des Herrn. Die Frage ist, was sind wir?
Is he saying God's heir?
Sind wir Menschen aus Fleisch und Blut?
The
Oder sind
Lord.
wir nur Bewusstsein? Mr. Knox, ich hoffe, dass Sie nun weitermachen.
I hope to see you later.
Lebt wohl, ihr beiden.
Goodbye, both of you.
Lebt wohl, euer Gnaden.
Euer Gnaden, our Lord, in a local sense.
George Barclay, irischer Bischof. 1685 bis 1753. Er war hier, Sophie.
Birth and death. He was here.
Er war hier.
dachte er denn, dass der Tisch nicht wirklich ist? Dass wir nicht wirklich sind?
Die Welt ist deine Auffassung von der Welt. Die Dinge sind da, nur ob man sie auch empfinden oder erfassen.
I don't know if you want to hear me try to translate the rest of it, unless you can follow it. This is obviously a film version of Sophie's World, which is, you could read it in English. It was originally, I think, in Swedish. I'm not sure. Yes? Norwegian? I always get those Mexican countries mixed up. Oh, I mean, sorry, those Norwegian. Yeah. There's a name where you could talk about Finland and Sweden and Norway.
Norwegian is actually way easier to learn than German, I think, because the syntax is the same as English.
Uh-huh.
Isn't it?
Well, and then you don't have to get that weird little, I can't do it even,
Right.
the farmer's daughter, that kind of. I'll just briefly show you this. I won't stay on it too long, but it's just absolutely hilarious. I won't play the whole thing, but it's kind of famous. The dove. Remember the name of it so that you can look it up and watch the whole thing.
Ja, så er det Michael. Skal vi take just a moment, skal?
So it's supposed to sound like it's in Swedish, but you'll notice it's actually just screwed up in English.
Gede Westenroute, ein bisschen stopper at the Unterhausen. Wouldn't you passier? It's the wrong way runter. You put in the lesson for us to lecture, or then teacher standing. Lebt am Standen. I hope I'm a son.
Hilarious? Yes. By the way, I guess the main reason for it being famous lately.
I have come other tempers in my life. Mennesker must put aside all their dreams, aspirations, und illusionsgas. Und tacken die kunstsköneste lycken, att vad ska lifen really offren ger.
He had to take a shit. That's why he needed to pull over.
Kind of sounds like middle English.
Min sista Inga, vilken plats att känna mig där. Och att det Siegfried was hos där. Und
I don't know if you recognize her.
skubades Gustav Andolin.
He's the one with the cigar. Wow, it's so funny. It's. I'd love to show it, but have a look. It's hilarious and short, and it's a pun on the Bergman films, especially the one where the knight ends up playing chess with death in order to extend his life, and he beats death, and so he continues to live. If you're into those films. Okay. So George Barclay, what other things are important? So George, as I was saying, why he is remembered in this country was he came up with an idea that the government ought to build a seminary in the New World for the training of local ministers, and especially for the for taking the native people and turning them into Christians. And so he had this idea that he would build a university on the island of Bermuda, a seminary on the island of Bermuda, and the king approved it, and so sent him off with this idea. But he didn't have the money yet to start the university in Bermuda, so first he went to Rhode Island and had the money that he was given to start up to buy a farm of 90 acres there and a house. And in fact, if you look at this page further down, you can see there's his house that he had, and it was kind of the first introduction of that style of house too, so that's kind of interesting. He also brought this artist who he had found in Scotland and became the first painter of portraits in the New World. And by the way, this is the painting of Berkeley and his family and others that hangs in the dining facility at Berkeley College, in their dining facility. So that's kind of fun. But he also, and this is, if you think about the contemporary issues associated with whether we should continue to honor people from the past for the things that they did, when they also did other things that are not accepted as moral from our contemporary society. So, for example, he believed that for this seminary, what they should do is basically go out and kidnap children from the natives that are under 10. That was his age limit. He thought 10 was the oldest they should be. So he thought we should kidnap children and take them in and teach them to be basically European Christians. That was his idea of the seminary. And by the way, I don't know if you're familiar with the various kinds of schools that were set up for natives that did almost exactly that, basically. And the records that they have, there's so many of those. I don't know if his idea of that was the first one that started that, but they clearly continued with that idea even up until recently. I mean, like, 1910? I don't know when the last of those schools were. It had to be later than that, because I know one of my colleagues, Willie Hensley, went to such a school and ended up in Tennessee for high school, and then went to college and so on. So, by the way, if you're interested in a really great book, I suggest Willie Hensley's book. Oops. 50 miles from Morrow. That's an absolutely fantastic book, and very philosophical also, by the way. He was very important in the various accomplishments that enabled the natives in Alaska to have their lands and have their corporations and things. He was a legislator, but he also felt very torn in half, because in getting all of these things accomplished, he realized it was also going to be a serious conflict with the native cultures, and could cause a great rift in the life of the natives. So the most philosophical chapter has him walking along the beach, realizing his accomplishments could actually ruin native culture. Fascinating book. But he went to a school very similar to the kind that Berkeley, it sounds like, was envisioning. So those schools were out there. He actually never established the school in Bermuda, because eventually the money, it became obvious that the Parliament would not approve the money, so he never got the money, even though George approved it, the king approved it, but the Parliament never actually offered it. And so he returned to Ireland. But he did, while he was living at that little farm, he had 3 slaves, and he's noted as having said that they were the worst kind of people there were, He didn't go as far as some past presidents and say they weren't people at all, which, that's kind of an interesting situation, contemporary situation. Yes, you're familiar with that? That was just, 2 days ago? Who said that? Nobody reading the paper? Sorry. Shouldn't bring contemporary politics into it. But, so the question, of course, is should they continue to honor him by naming a college in his honor, or and so basically the response so far has been that people are going to remember the place as Berkeley College or Berkeley University, but they're not going to think of it as honoring him per se. Does that make sense? That's the out right now for that. But that's obviously part of the contemporary situation that people are arguing over. So, Hylas and Philonous, the dialogues between Hylas and Philonous, is the book where he tries to demonstrate that Locke's materialism is certainly contradictory, and Hylas is the person who represents matter, which would be Locke's position, and Philonous, the love of mind, is Berkeley's